should be like you, Mel.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Cherries fans from around the world. Welcome back to another edition of Cherries Slaps with my co-host, as always, Malcolm Chivington. Welcome this evening, Malcolm.
Hi, Ollie. Good evening, everybody. Hope you're all well. Happy New Year.
Indeed, Happy New Year, absolutely. And tonight we are joined by two special guests. One of them not so special because you see him a lot of the time. That is Craig Beasley. Welcome, Craig.
Hello, mate. Yeah, all good, all good. You all right, Malcolm? I'm here.
Hi, Craig. Yeah, all good, thanks.
Here to add the positivity.
Really?
Yeah, I am.
I'll be making notes. All right.
All right, no problem.
And a special announcement for another guest who's welcome back to the show, Manny. Welcome back, Manny.
Good evening, Oliver. Good evening, Malcolm. And, of course, good evening, Craig. And I have to say, saying that Mr. Beasley is not so special, bit of a cheap shot. I mean, maybe being sarcastic, I don't know. But, look, we all know how special he is. He doesn't need to be insecure. In fact, it was thanks to him that I was first brought here. And any chance I get to come back, it's always a privilege. So thank you once again for having me.
Sure. And look, sarcasm or no sarcasm, me and Craig have a special relationship. He knows that he's welcome tonight on tonight's show. However, his opinions have been heard numerous times about the game. So I'm intrigued to see what is to be brought to this evening's show, Manny. As an Arsenal fan, obviously also very intrigued to hear your take on things. Before we get into it, there is a couple of people in the chat, so I'll just get to them. Chris Hubble, evening everyone. Evening, Chris.
Hi, Chris.
And Paul from Oz says good evening. Hey, Paul.
Hi, Paul.
And Talk Fan TV is with us tonight as well. Good evening.
Good evening to you.
A few others in the chat watching live on YouTube and Facebook as well. Facebook or Instagram, whichever one it is. But look, let's get into it because obviously Bournemouth's winless league run extended with 2 goals at the weekend, which was a shame to see. 0 points taken away from it. However, a couple of interesting things happened in the game. Another fantastic game with great tempo, great intensity, a little bit chaotic, which is good to see again. It's the kind of football that we love. But Malcolm and Craig, please take it away. Obviously, first 15 minutes, I wouldn't say we took control of the game, but we took chances that were given to us. And we got a goal from it, right? Which gave us a really great start in the game.
You go first, Malcolm.
Yeah, thanks, mate. We started on the front foot. The first thing I was looking at was a performance following on from the Chelsea game. Absolutely spot on. Couldn't have asked for more. But as you say, the start, the kickoff, bit of a rare mistake from Mr. Gabriel at the back to gift Ever his chance. But Arsenal are always going to come back into it. A little bit surprised at the starting lineup they had, but when you looked at their bench, I just thought a lot. Oh my god, that's not being defeatist. That is just showing, the depth that they've now got. They got two full teams basically now that can perform. But yeah, great start by us. High tempo game. It was brilliant. I mean, I loved it. That is the football I like to watch. But hey ho, Arsenal come back into it obviously with Gabriel putting everything to right. A bit iffy really. Had chances to clear it, but brilliant finish, and probably, I suppose, really over the first 45, 1-1 was really pretty fair, I would think.
I think fair's a good word to use for it. Craig, anything else to add to that before we go over to Manny?
Yeah, of course. To be honest, I was, surprised, of course, as Malcolm says, with the side that Arsenal put out. It didn't feel like a second string team because Arsenal have got two very, very strong teams. When I spoke to Marty from AFTV, we discussed this in quite some detail, how they can rotate players. And this is why I think this is Arsenal's year, because they have got that quality in abundance. Just coming back onto ourselves, I was actually quite pleased about the changes we made. James Hill partnering Marcos in the centre of defence. I really like James. He's a quality player, good lad as well. He deserves his chance, and I think now this time round we've got to kind of stand by him. And we've got to give him a significant run in this team because, to be honest, I don't think he put really a foot wrong. Other than that, Antoine Semenyo, I'm surprised he played, considering all the transfer speculation around him. Sorry, Malcolm. But, he is a Bournemouth player and he is dedicated to the cause. There was always that little bit of talk. I read something that, Pep Guardiola wanted Semenyo to play against Arsenal to see if he could take some points off them. But overall, the first 15 minutes, like you say, we come out the traps really well. We come out quick. We was on the front foot. We seem to be imposing our style of play, which we haven't seen at times. Dare I say, the Brentford game, the Everton game, the game at Aston Villa, which was those three games were a bit of a shambles of this recent run. And it's kind of put a lot of doubts over certain players. But then they play like they did in the first 15 minutes. And I think it's a confidence thing.
Yeah. And we'll come back to some of those players, actually, because there's certain players I do want to bring up performance-wise from first half and second half. Manny, coming over to you. Obviously, you've heard two different versions of the game, the first half at least. Are they fair representations of the game? Do you feel it's accurate what's being said? I mean, obviously, we came out, Gabriel made a mistake, but he very quickly rectified that mistake. And then from that moment on, Arsenal pretty much had control of the game, apart from a couple of chances from Kluivert, obviously Tav running down the wing. What was your take on the first half, mate?
I wouldn't say, Ollie, that we had control of the first half, because I'll tell you what, one of the things which I like about the way you play is that with that 4-2-3-1 formation that Iraola uses, you're more than capable of using a really good press, and it was that press which actually forced us on the back foot and forced that mistake from Gabriel. And it was interesting hearing Malcolm say that it was a rare mistake. I can tell you that every now and then he will have one of those what we call silly moments, cue your Benny Hill music or what have you. And I think credit to him, he did sort of recover from that. And obviously, he did score that equalizer. But I would actually put I remember tweeting actually saying that Bournemouth actually were the better team in that first half, because you obviously did a lot more of the running. You were finding the gaps, you were finding the spaces. Kluivert, Tavernier and company were looking so, dangerous. And you actually looked the more likely to score, whereas our equaliser was really just a case of luck, a defensive skirmish, pinball in the box, if you will, and then Gabriel scored. And it was sort of that similar refrain, which, was the backdrop for Declan Rice's 2 goals in the second half. Sorry for the spoiler alert. I think the overwhelming feeling I got from watching the game, especially the first half, is that you lot are far too good to be where you are in the table. And I'm not saying this, obviously, because, I've done a lot of work with you in the past and I'm still back here. I do enjoy watching Bournemouth play. I do like Iriola as a coach, and there's a reason why he's so sought after, especially with the raft of sackings that have been taking place. 2 have taken place today, 1 in England, 1 in Scotland, as you might know. And I do think that the loss of Semenyo will definitely be felt. And I find it quite surprising that, he's being given the green light to play a few games for Bournemouth before he ends up moving to Manchester City. But in the spirit of our charity, we are, I believe, offering you Ethan Nwaneri, who should be coming to you lot to play on loan. I think he'll be leaving one Basque manager to go and play for another. And, of course, both of them, as we all know, were good mates back in their part of Spain, played on the same under-10s team. Although I think it's fair to say that Iriola had easily the better playing career. And I think Ethan will do a good job for you if he's given regular game time. He's shown his talent and ability in spades, and many of us are frustrated that he hasn't been given the minutes that he deserves, really. And I think that'll sort of segue into the issue of rotation that we might speak about later. But without digressing further, I think the first half you marginally shaded it, and I think Arteta clearly must have given the boys an absolute rollicking, because in the second half we came out further, and I think I'll segue that back to you, Ollie, so that you can talk about second half.
Just want to throw a question out there, actually, because sorry to jump in here, because of course Gabriel made that mistake and that bit of a howler, which we were surprised about, and of course Evan Nielsen took advantage of that. But with regards to Jordi Petrovic in the Bournemouth goal, do you think, and a lot of people, there's contrasting views on this. Do you think he could have done better with stopping that and getting that ball out, first? Because he has been a bit, he's been caught at his near post a couple of times so far this season, Manny, as you've probably seen. And
Yes, that's a good point there, Craig. I mean, I remember 1 or 2 games where he certainly looked pretty iffy. Certainly when you lot went to the G-Tech to play Brentford, he was definitely culpable for one of the goals. It was credited as an own goal. And the ironic thing is that when he signed for you lot, I thought, he was a perfect replacement for Kepa, who did quite well. And obviously Neto went back to Brazil with Botafogo. I thought he'd be a decent buy, and a lot of Chelsea fans were raving about him. But I think it's probably the lot that, when a player, a goalkeeper especially, has been a reserve at a big club for so long, played well in the opportunities he's gotten, but not gotten any more. When he suddenly has to make a jump to another club to try and get some games, he just can't hack it, and there'll be a few teething problems. I mean, Kelleher was able to overcome those teething problems, and of course, Emi Martinez had a brilliant first season with Aston Villa after leaving Arsenal. I think maybe he's suffering from a bit of a crisis of confidence, and of course, that will segue into what I think could prove to be a very crucial buy, acquiring the services of the former Southampton, England and Tottenham Hotspur goalkeeper Fraser Forster, who was, of course, a teammate of another former Cherry, Dominic Solanke, as they won the Europa League. I think Petrovic needs a bit of competition, and Forster will be quite experienced in that regard. He knows the league very well, very familiar with the South Coast. I think he will lend some competition. And as far as the goals were concerned, he might perhaps have been to blame for maybe one of them. But what I will also say is, when you defend the way that you defended for some of the goals, basically not being able to, display the level of composure that you need to take the ball out, I think the defense also has to share the blame. And this season, having sold 3 of your best defenders, Zabani, Huijsen, and Kroupi'S, yes, and bringing in some replacements, it was never going to be an easy transitional period. And you started brilliantly, I thought, but then you ended up fading away. I only hope that there'll be a lot more talk about the responsibilities that that everyone should have. And I think the guy who came in at right back, Jimenez, with Araujo going to Celtic on loan and Smithy starting on the bench, I thought he also looked good, mind you. I thought he was also able to run the channel quite well and overlap a little bit. In short, regarding...
You've hit the nail on the head there with what you were saying about Petrovic, is when you throw players into games full time, you're going to see teething problems. When we, and it's not a gamble, we're not taking a gamble on these players because we've seen these players play and we know that they'd fit into the ethos of the squad, just like Kepa did, just like Dawdy did right at the start. Petrovic, he looked perfect at the start, but as you play game after game after game after game after game, there's going to be issues and training problems, and I think that's a good thing. Just like we've seen with Diakite, thrown heavily in at the deep end, from France to the Premier League, first game against Liverpool at Anfield for the first game in the Premier League, there was going to be a time where he started to not perform, unfortunately. Yeah. Same with Milos. So all of them at different times have had bad games or explosive games. In Jimenez is... in his aspect, because there's a couple of games where he's come on and he's been a bit too explosive and a bit too aggressive. But again, he's now started to wind that down a little bit, and now you're starting to see the best out of him. So yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. I think it's a characteristic build issue rather than a player issue on the pitch, fitting in with the squad or moulding properly. I think there's just a bit more training and a bit more honing with these certain players. And I want to come back to what you said about the first half as well, about you not thinking that Arsenal had full control and that obviously Bournemouth were being disruptive pretty early on. I think we had to come out with that good energy in midfield and being forward in transitions, right? And I think if we didn't have that, I think it could have been 5, 6, 7-0.
Exactly. That's right.
And again, it comes down to the depth of the squad. I'm not sure if you guys heard while watching live, but one of the guys on there said it was like back in the day playing against United, where at 60 minutes they'd bring on Van Nistelrooy, Scholes, and Giggs, and you're like, holy crap, we can't compete against those three subs. You know what I mean? And that's almost the place where Arsenal are at now. And at the start of the season, I was looking forward to second halves because of our explosive sub bench. But now, because of the lack of depth in the squad that we've got at the moment, we're having to pull in those players. And now it's left our sub bench a lot less explosive. So our second half is becoming more dilapidated. So it's a real interesting transition at the moment where the team is at. But yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I didn't mean to jump.
No, that's all right. That's all right. I'm sorry for talking a bit too long there. By the way.
No, it's good. It's good to have it on. Good to have a number of opinions. But we will push on to second half because I'm sure it's going to bring out more things. Go on, Mal.
Can I just say, in the first half, we had 8 shots to Arsenal's 5. All right, so possession-wise, whatever, it was pretty okay. Arsenal had more of the ball, all right, 62%. And the big chances 1 apiece. Corners 4-1 in our favour. So, as the home team and the way we play, the way we started the game, it's pretty decent reflection. If you want to go for the XG, it's not my favourite stat, but we were 1.22 and Arsenal 0.49.
Am I right in thinking out of those 8 shots and 5 shots, there was only 1 on target for each team, and that was the goal?
Well, it just says big chances here, what I've got. So
yeah, I think if I remember rightly, going into half time, it was 1-on-1 for the shots on target board, and that was both the goals.
Yeah, I think that is what they are. But I tell you what, we did play very, like Malcolm says there, and like Manny says there. We played very, very, very well. In that first half. I'm sorry to bring up Petrovic because, I think he is he's a great goalkeeper. He has got some real quality behind him. I think it's the confidence. He just needs to hopefully get his head up and, move on. Everybody has tough spells in their career and maybe he's having a little bit one of those. But if he learns and grows from it, he's only a young man, he'll only get better. But yeah, I was very, very pleased with how we started.
Paul
and that first half.
says, agrees with some of the comments. Petrovic's distribution is poor for a top keeper. Chris Hubble says Arsenal were a better team than us. Let's get back to winning ways on Wednesday night against Tottenham.
That's an interesting one, to be honest, Chris's comment, because I think at first half, would you say, Manny, I don't think you were head and shoulders above us. What I would say is Declan Rice was controlling that midfield. There's a reason why Declan Rice is such, and one of the mainstays of the England and the Arsenal team. As much as I absolutely love Bukayo Saka, as everybody knows. I was surprised to see him not start, but because Rice is so good, it gives them that opportunity to give that injection of real pace and that real skill, in that second half, like you were saying.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry, Ollie, but I will sort of air my piece on this. We missed Declan when we played Aston Villa at the Emirates. I mean, I know we dominated them in the second half, but that was really only because Aston Villa lost their own Declan Rice in Amadou Onana, who, if you take a look at the way he plays along with, Boubacar Kamara in the midfield, he's literally the midfield enforcer. And there's almost, I dare say, a little bit of Patrick Vieira about Onana. And Declan Rice is maybe slightly different, maybe not quite as physical as Aston Villa's Belgian, but he does have the ability to influence the game, as you say. You're absolutely spot on there. And the big issue is that we also knew, Craig, that he was struggling with a bit of an injury as well. Mm-hmm. So it was sort of touch and go whether he'd be available for the game, and that's the ironic thing. I personally, I'm sort of glad that he was able to, be past fit. But my biggest fear is now that if we overexert him, we might not get too much from him, and that sort of segues into the issue of the squad depth. His understudy, as it were, if that's the right term, is Christian Norgard, the former Brentford captain, and yet. The biggest problem, one of the reasons why I'm not too impressed with the way Arteta handles his squad is that although you are spot on in saying that we do have the depth, Arteta still has his favourites. He's always going to pick the likes of Rice and Saka to start the more important games, while Norgard and the likes of Madueke don't really get too many minutes. And that's another reason why Nwaneri is actually coming over to the Vitality Stadium. So when Rice plays and is, fit, he does control proceedings. We saw that when we played against Real Madrid in the Champions League, not just the free kicks, but also how he was able to influence the game very well. But if he isn't 100% fit, you're just not going to get that from him. And we didn't really know if he could be that way. I mean, he scored 2 wonderful goals. I'm grateful for that. But even with Rice playing as well as he did, you still had the better of the first half. And I'm not being, uncharitable in any way. I call it as I see it. And I think, you were better. But in the second half, obviously, Arteta gave the boys a bit of a rollicking and they came out with a bit more intent. And I think it just boils down more than anything else to how Bournemouth defended for the 3 goals. And so it's okay to say that Petrovic should have saved 1 or 2. But again, the defending also, in my opinion, lacked quite a bit of composure. You saw for those 3 goals, the inability to just, take it away, just boot the ball away. I was hoping that maybe someone like Senesi would show a little bit more leadership, being probably the most experienced defender in that back 4. I think if Adam Smith regains some form and comes back into the team, he will provide that bit of leadership. But it seems to be lacking a little bit. And your key to at least having a recovery will be making sure that you get your defense tight again. Because when it comes to the midfield and attack, you lot are set. Evan Nilsson is a really good goal poacher. And you talk about the squad depth, Ollie. I wouldn't mind having a weak squad if I know that Junior Kroupi can come on and score those belters. Be it against United at Old Trafford or against Arsenal at the Vitality, you've got yourself an absolute gem.
Yeah, I was about to come on to this actually and then lead on to Malcolm because I know that he's going to be happy about that, Manny. you're absolutely spot on. Rice's return from injury was, I think, hugely decisive. Obviously, 2 well-taken goals. I think you might have mentioned it. Bournemouth's press intensity remained super high for long periods. And I think Arsenal's movement and midfield linking play really exposed gaps for us as we pushed forward each time, which kind of cut us up on every single attack. But your game management after conceding the first goal, I think, was better. I know that we were obviously singing Bournemouth praises, but we were let down in a number of aspects, I think. And I think as a management of the game, to drop a goal on that first 10 minutes, you saw Gabriel's face and you saw how much effort he put in to get that goal back. I think then it was even pegging for the game ahead, and it was exciting to watch. But Kroupi, I think this is a big thing to shout out, is that Bournemouth don't give up, and you could tell from the intensity and the fact that Kroupi comes on again and, as you said, scores a wonderful goal, another fantastic goal. What is it going to take for him to be starting? You know, is he that wonder sub that I was just talking about? Is he the last one on the bench? Malcolm, let's have a few thoughts there.
Yeah, okay. First season, so he has started some games, hasn't really performed. If I'm very, very honest. As a starting striker. Obviously, you look at the Palace game where he got 2. That was fine. But other than that, very little. So coming off the bench, bearing in mind it's his first season, he's only 19. That's the right way to do it. Give him perhaps 30 minutes as a max. Give him the game time. We know what he can do. It's no disrespect to Ever either to bring him off and put Kroupi on.
Mm-hmm.
And Kroupi will always find something. Whether it's a shot, whether it's a pass, whether it's a run. And he'll work for the team as well.
Yep.
And it's just a question, like I said, it's his first season. So get through this season and build it up slowly. So I'd be quite happy to see him start on the bench every game, to be honest here. Now I know, Craig, I know there's a lot of Ever bashers out there.
No, I'm not an Ever basher. No, I'm not an Ever basher.
Stop. Evan Nielsen is a workhorse.
Mm-hmm.
Now I watch every game. What I saw him against Chelsea last week, what I saw of him against Arsenal, it's not just up the front. This is defending as well. He's getting back and he's helping the team all over the pitch, whether it's right, whether it's left. Now, I don't think Kroupi's got that in him at the moment. So that's why I'm quite happy to see Evan Nielsen do what he does.
Interesting. As an Arsenal fan, Manny, looking in on the Ever and Kroupi saga, what's your take on it? I mean, obviously, first half up against Ever, second half up against Kroupi. Kroupi made the impact. Obviously, I imagine as an Arsenal fan and watching the game, you didn't necessarily feel that impact as much from Ever. Well, what's the look from an opposing fan?
No, I'm going to disagree with that premise there, Ollie, because I'll tell you what, I've seen enough of Evan Nielsen to know that this guy is everything you'd want in a striker. Obviously, when you sold Solanke to Tottenham and he went on to become a champion of Europe, the biggest issue you had then was how would you replace him? And so getting Evan Nielsen to come in was probably a bit of a masterstroke because, you know, he's also been able to, as Malcolm has alluded to, settle into the squad quite well. And I think his performances last season were certainly indicative of his willingness to make sure that he did what the manager would ask of him and also provide the goals. And I think one really fond memory that you might have of him was scoring that breathlessly late equaliser against Aston Villa at Villa Park. And that proved to be quite crucial in the final analysis in denying the Birmingham club a second consecutive appearance in the Champions League, although they are favourites to win the Europa. And he's contributed with more goals, but as Malcolm has said, he also adds a bit more to the team. And I think the biggest issue I have with teams who play lone strikers in 4-2-3-1 formations is that they expect their strikers to do a lot more. I think the days of, you know, having just pure finishers starting who don't do anything else, I think that's sort of long gone. You now tend to save them for the end. And again, we all know our footballing history about these super subs whose unpredictability keeps them out of the starting lineup. But because we know that they can provide a goal from anywhere, they just end up, being those super subs who come on and save the day, or they come on to add a bit of gloss. And that's pretty much how Liverpool fans would remember David Fairclough, and how other players would be defined. You take a look at Daniel Malin with Aston Villa. When he starts, he doesn't really add that much. He doesn't really hold up the ball very well, but he has wonderful speed, has a good shot on him. And more often than not, when he comes on, he scores some pretty decent goals. And Kroupi might very well be in that same mould. I take the point that Malcolm made that Kroupi hasn't really offered very much, but he also added a caveat that it is Kroupi's first season. So Kroupi has to adapt a lot more to what Areola would want from him. And of course, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty about whether or not Andoni will be staying at the club. So if there is a situation where a new manager comes in with a new attitude, with a new philosophy, how will Kroupi respond to that? That's always going to be the question. I think, as I said, if I have someone like Kroupi who can come off and score an absolute, screamer, a postage stamp style goal, if you will, I wouldn't complain. And if you give him his minutes, if you see what he can do, I think the more goals he scores and the better he plays coming on as a sub, the more confidence that might give him to actually start a game. And with the FA Cup starting this month, there will be opportunities for some of the fringe players to play. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kroupi were to start in your first game. Who are you playing in the FA Cup, by the way, first?
Newcastle.
Ooh, too big of a game. A bit too big. I wouldn't be surprised if Andoni starts Kroupi for that to see what he can do. But then, playing against Newcastle, Sir Eddie, of course, as Craig fondly calls it, is not going to be easy. But without digressing, I think let Kroupi enjoy his football. Let him enjoy doing what he does best. Maybe give him a few games on the side to see how well he can cope with it and make sure he can adapt well. And, if he proves to be an absolute bargain, keep him for another season. But I also hope that if it comes to pass that Andoni leaves and you get a new manager, that the new manager will also treat him well. But having said that,
reading the Sun?
I don't read the Sun, sir. I don't like the red tops.
I tell you what, I want to throw something in about Kroupi, though, because he come on with 15 minutes to go in the game. I think he should have been brought on a little bit earlier. And I think he works very, very well alongside Enisu now. So, that did not surprise me that Ennis come on at the same time. Those two, seem to have a real connection when they play together. But I would have given Kroupi a little bit more time.
Let me ask you a question on that, Craig.
Yes.
So would you have said the same thing if the ref hadn't have blown the whistle and we'd have crossed the ball into the box and Kroupi or you now would have scored and made it 3-3? Would you have still said that we should have brought them on earlier? Because let's be honest, the ref probably shouldn't have blown the whistle as the ball came out to our player on the edge of the box.
Yeah.
I thought I'd get some contradictive looks there. Some people saying, "Yep, absolutely." Manny saying, "No, absolutely called for." Well, what's our feeling here?
My honest opinion on this is that we always see that the game is finished when the ball goes into the middle of the park, or when it's cleared by a defender. It wasn't being cleared by a defender. We were on the attack at that point. We'd just thrown the ball on.
All players in the box. Petrovic.
All the players in the box. Petrovic in there. It should never have been stopped at that time. If that was any other team, be it, if that was Man United or, it would be all, everybody would be up in arms. Mark Goldbridge would be jumping up and down like a jack in the box. To be perfectly honest, I think, and I do agree with you, the game should have continued. But I still feel that, and I do agree with Malcolm actually on this front, that Evanilson does a lot more defensive work than Kroupi does. Kroupi is a striker. Evanilson is a battler. He is a workhorse. He is tough. He's He really gets stuck in. So I can see why, and I'm not an ever basher, but I think that Kroupi'S should have had a little bit more time, as should Enisu now. And I think maybe, just maybe, we would have got that equaliser well before, the referee blew that final whistle.
Malcolm,
I agree completely.
Manny, go ahead, Manny.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just going to say that I agree completely with what Craig has said. But before I elaborate, Malcolm, sir, go right ahead, please.
What did you want, Ollie?
I was just going to say thoughts on the ref blowing the whistle.
Yeah, disappointing, to be honest with you. I mean, like Craig said, normally it's when if a defender boots the ball up towards the halfway line or out for a throw-in or something, the ref would then blow up final whistle. But to have a team, it doesn't matter, even if it was the other way, going the other way, even if Arsenal are on the attack and the ref blew the whistle at that moment, just before cross comes in, sorry, it's not on. And I'm not saying it because it was Bournemouth. It was just one of those football decisions, where you think, oh, for goodness sake, ref, couldn't you have just, done the sensible thing, let them at least have another go, and then, so you're only talking of seconds. It's not as though you're adding an extra 2 minutes on, are you?
Yeah, very true.
So
I'll probably just. I'll briefly say a few things. As Craig said, yes, both Enes and Kroupi'S should have been brought on earlier. You don't want to have a situation where you're waiting until the last 15 minutes to bring on some attacking subs that could change the game. If you bring them on a bit earlier, let them settle into the game a bit more, it would have been good. And, of course, bear in mind that we were 3-1 up, but with that goal, we were sort of shocked a bit. And I was actually fearing the worst because I've seen us concede late equalisers. I mean, the one against Sunderland was shambolic, should have been avoided. And the one against Aston Villa, oh boy, did that spurn so many memes on Twitter. But I suppose in many ways, we sort of weathered it well enough. But I think you will probably look back and say that you should have brought them on earlier. And as for the issue of blowing the whistle, I would, for the most part, agree that it was, bizarre that the referee ended it. But again, it is one of those footballing decisions, as Malcolm said. And I think the referees are pretty much, on their guard to make sure that once you take into consideration the stoppages and, the time added on, you want to make sure that exactly 90 minutes have been played. And there was actually an occasion in Euro 2016, I think it was the quarterfinals when France played, I want to say Iceland, I think France had the game won at that point. But then with seconds to go before the very end, with stoppage time added, Karim Benzema actually scored another goal. But because the referee blew his whistle just before the goal was scored, that goal wasn't going to count. It was just as well that it was academic because France had already secured the win. But I think that might be the way of thinking. I agree, though, with Malcolm that there is a level of injustice because you want to have that consistency. And that is where referees have to make the decision. Do you literally be, for want of a nicer word, strict about ensuring that you play 90 minutes on the dot, no seconds more or less? Or do you let common sense dictate that if one final attacking chance would take only a matter of a few seconds, do you allow that to continue? That is, again, something that the referees in their unions and groups have got to decide, because when you have these moments which take away a great deal of, enjoyment and satisfaction and drama and leave many fans with bitter tastes in their mouths, it's disgusting. And we've already seen it with the application of VAR. We've seen it with a few other things. I think it's as if the bigwigs at the Premier League decide controversy is what, sells this product. Controversy is what brings people back. It's what gets backsides on seats, and people still keep coming back for more. But in the long term, if fans are going to continue to be shortchanged like this, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good.
I'll just
and
throw a
there's-
curveball as well.
Bear with me, Craig. Bear with me 2 seconds just before you crack on. Only
Yeah.
because there's a couple of comments, and I want to make sure that we get the
Yeah,
comments
sorry.
in Danny's saying as well. That's all right. So, Matthew O'Connell, I assume, is a Arsenal fan from the Rice Baby, which we'll come to in a minute. Matthew O'Connell, ref gave you an extra goal already, so I was waiting for him to explain why. And he says, "Please, ref, give us more time than allowed for free." I think obviously a bit of banter there. Rice Baby, we'll come back to this because I don't think you'd have had the performance you had if Rice wasn't on the pitch. Firstly. But he says that there was an extra ball that was already going in. Now, if we look back at that and we say, right, so as you said, Craig, so the time limit has exceeded slightly. The ball hasn't been kicked out. It's still in our possession.
Yeah.
I mean, technically, I don't think it should have been blown. But
No, he shouldn't have been blown. In all honesty, Ollie.
Eyes of the law of the game, irrelevant if it's 30 seconds over or a minute over, if it's still in that attacking play in the final third, I don't think there's many refs that would have blown that, to be honest.
I think it was 16 seconds. And of course, there was a little bit of a delay because of the corner that was taken between Saka and Jesus in the far side, just in front of us. So Saka did take his time. Hey, we would have done the same. You know, let's be honest. I don't blame him at all.
You'll do it.
What I would say, though, is if that ball was allowed to come in, and say, for example, Declan Rice clears it, goes to Saka, Saka crosses it to Jesus, and Jesus sticks it in the back of the net to make it 4-2, I would have no quibbles because at the end of the day, Jordi Petrovic is up the pitch. If that break happens, then so be it. But I don't think the referee should have blown up because there was a little bit of time wasting beforehand. And like I say, if Arsenal had made the break straight after, that ball come in, we would have been beaten 4-2. Not a problem. No quibbles. Wouldn't have an issue.
Manny, I want to ask a final topic before we close off, and it is about Rice. Obviously, his return was huge. How would that game have looked without him? Because don't get me wrong, you're not losing games at all. You're 6 points ahead now at the top of the table going into the second half of the season. You've been having some fantastic results, but obviously Rice coming back and everyone's going crazy for that performance. Would it have been different with him off the pitch?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to sort of dismiss that by saying that if my aunt had a mustache, I'd call her my uncle. We were talking about this, and I think we all agree that, yes, he was pivotal. But again, the biggest fear that we had, Ollie, was that he was just coming off an injury which had ruled him out of the Aston Villa game. And I, for one, wasn't really confident that he'd be fit. He was somehow past fit, and he went on to have the game that he had. And as I also mentioned, his understudy is Christian Norgard, and that's the issue. Because Arteta has his favourites, he's always going to start his favourites ahead of everyone else. And, for more than anything else, it smacks of a lack of trust in his understudies, the people that he bought. Forget about Norgard, for instance, someone like Ebery Eze, who was in the team for a spell when Martin Odegaard was absent and had an absolute stormer of a game playing in the number 10 role against Tottenham Hotspur, where he had a hat-trick. And then as soon as the captain comes back, Eze is off the picture, or he's asked to play on the left side in a position where he's not really familiar. And then how many minutes has Norgard been given? It's all very well saying that, we got such admirable squad depth and we should be the envy of every team in the league. Although, frankly, if you're challenging for the title, you've got to make sure you have some good squad depth. And, of course, I credit Aston Villa for doing as well as they've been doing, despite their relatively thin squad. But if they just make a couple of loan signings, Bob's your uncle, their uncle, if you will. But if you're challenging for the title, you have to have a good squad depth. And you've also, as a manager, got to have the sense, to use that squad effectively. If you have some concerns about Declan Rice's fitness, bring on Norgard. If you don't think that Odegaard has been able to influence the games the way you would like them and not really dominate, just let him start on the bench and bring on Ebery Eze. We rested Bukayo Saka for Noni Madueke. We alternate between Gabriel Martinelli and Leandro Trossard on the left wing. So there is some rotation, but there needs to be more, especially when it comes to managing games where you play midweek and then over the weekend. And that is something that Arteta still can't do. So as happy as I was with Rice's performance, my biggest fear is that if he gets another injury, if he's crocked, then it could, really hurt us, because then you're throwing someone like Norgard into the team, expecting him to perform a role, and he may not be, in good condition for that. And bear in mind, when we had our fullbacks injured, there was a point where Declan Rice was even playing at right back. So that poor fellow's been running to the ground.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that Declan Rice was past fit. He played, he scored those 2 goals. But this is one reason why I'm not getting giddy or carried away about the prospect of us winning the league and having people say that it's our year. I'm sorry, Craig. I know you've got a real soft spot for us, and I love you for it. But we've been through this time and time again. Some of us have PTSD from seasons gone by. And if you remember that 3-2 result at the Emirates, I think that was in 2023 when Reece Nelson got that winner. A lot of people were calling that the stuff of champions. We all know what happened afterwards. So I'm not getting giddy. All I can say is, I hope. Sorry, Craig, you were saying?
I honestly think it's your turn this year. I honestly do, because you're 6 points ahead now. I think you're in great form. You've got 2 sides.
You're going to jinx it, Craig. You're going to jinx it for them.
Mate, honestly, I really want Arsenal to win the league. They're a great group of fans. I get on really, really well with, and I got loads of Arsenal friends as well. Not just yourself, Manny, but it's always a pleasure to see you on here. But I really hope that you do get back, to winning that league, and I honestly think this is the year. Although saying that, I've just seen something that's really, really, really funny. A former Cherry, I say former Cherry, he was on loan here. Rio Ferdinand has insisted Mikel Arteta will leave Arsenal to replace Ruben Amorim.
Get out of here.
No. First of all, Mr. Beasley, you've got to take everything that the Prince of Peckham says with a pinch of salt.
Yes.
I think we all know that by now. And one thing which
Manny, I've got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Do you think Declan Rice will be starting against Liverpool on Thursday, or do you think they'll put him on the bench?
I hope he starts, because if Arteta were to decide to start Norgard in this game, I'm not too sure what tree he's barking up, and we could end up, being stuck up a gum tree if it doesn't work. But, the thing about Arteta is that every now and then he has some wacky ideas, and every now and then they tend to work. But I think he'll probably prefer to have his first choice midfielder starting that game. And obviously the form in which Liverpool are right now, where they can't even find a winner for Toffee, I'm actually confident of us winning 3-1. And I would like to see a dominant performance. But I also know that this Liverpool team will be motivated to beat us, and they beat us early at Anfield with a world-class free kick. I think the Szoboszlai-Rice duel, if it happens, will definitely be something interesting, something to behold. And it will remain to see if Liverpool's rickety defence can hold up. I think there needs to be a cull of defenders there. Some of those defenders are past their prime. And Craig, I promise you one thing. If we do win the league this season, I'm going to make sure that I come back to Bournemouth as soon as possible and treat you and almost everyone else to a free fish and chips meal at Harry Ramsden's.
There we are. I'll take you up
That's
on
not
that,
bad.
mate. I'll take
That's
you up
not
on
bad.
that. Malcolm
I'll
is
fly
coming
over.
over as well. Yep, there we
I was
are.
about to say, that is a big shout out on a show.
Ollie's coming down from
held
North
to now
Wales.
as well.
Right.
Listen, guys, it's been go on.
Just before you carry on, just got notification Martin O'Neill's back at Celtic.
Yes. Never should have been shown to the side.
Exactly. I agree. 100%.
Just before we close the show out, guys, it's been fantastic with all of you on, obviously bouncing around and a bit chaotic, just as we like it. But what I want from Saturday's game is your standout player / man of the match. Obviously, a lot of people go for the standard man of the matches, but that's why I say a standout player for you specifically. Malcolm, I'm going to start with you, my friend.
I'm going to take a Bournemouth player, James Hill.
Oh, good shout. Yeah, good shout.
Had a really, really good game. Yeah. I could have gone for Jimenez. He had nothing left in the tank at the end. He was running on empty. But for me, yeah, really solid game, James Hill.
Nice, Craig.
You took the wind out of my sails there. Overall on the pitch, I would say Declan Rice, without a shadow of a doubt, was the best player on the pitch.
Obviously, yeah, but
However, James Hill, was so assured. He seemed calm. He seemed collected. He was making all the right moves. He was stopping players. He now deserves to make this position his own. He needs to get a run of games under his belt, and I think he will take this opportunity. Honestly, bet my word on it. I would actually bet on this. I think he will be Senesi's partner till the end of the season, of course.
Okay.
Big call.
Standout player.
Well, obviously, I will, go for Declan Rice, but it's from a Bournemouth perspective, and I want to make sure that I have a Bournemouth perspective because this is a Bournemouth fan channel. I think, James Hill is a good shout. Jimenez definitely had some good moments. I think the one person who, really gave you guys a chance, kept giving you more of a chance. I'm torn between Marcus Tavernier and Justin Kluivert, and I probably would give it to Tavernier. There's been so much talk about all of the uncertainty going on, whether or not the likes of Marcus and Justin will continue to remain at the club. And, if Justin ends up getting a big move, I think he will have earned it, definitely. It's one, but you lot will have a special place in his heart for giving him a chance to resurrect his career when many people have given up on him. But as long as you've got Tavernier in the team, you've got someone who has that dynamism to really keep starting plays and, just drawing straight lines in the opposition territory and making sure that those attacks are dictated. And again, there were times in that first half when I was actually, fearful because you were finding pockets of space. Our defence was spread apart at times. I'd rate him as Bournemouth's man of the match. And it's a very big call to say that James Hill should be Senesi's partner. I think when you have a situation where the likes of Hill and Jimenez have come in and played a few games, they've looked good. But again, we were talking about teething problems earlier. There are going to be some games where they probably might not be able to rise to the occasion, or maybe their inexperience will count against them. And I think Senesi will definitely have a role to play if he ends up starting more games, because now he's the senior most defender, as I said. So you just need to hope that some of the injured players you have will come back. And if Georgie Porgy drops another clanger, I think it might be time to bring in Big Fraser and just make sure he's up to match fitness and see if he can provide some solidity, because he's got the experience. And once again, it's an example of how a lot of these clubs, which may not be at the top, have a knack of really making some smart purchases that can improve a team. So, yeah, Declan Rice and Marcus Tavernier, my two men of the match.
Just a very, very good point there as well, with Petrovic. If he does end up getting dropped, and like Diakite, I actually think Diakite will actually evolve and get better as a player, because he will be more determined to get in that side. I think if James Hill does get the nod, on a permanent basis to partner Senesi, what Diakite will be able to do is focus on his game on the training grounds. And likewise, Jordi Petrovic gets dropped for Fraser Forster. Then again, they can both focus on their game. They can both make the right moves. And when they get that chance, again, it's the whole point of taking it with both hands and making it yours. And that's what I think James Hill will be doing now, is because he's been waiting so long for that opportunity. He will take it with both hands. And it's up to now Diakite and, of course, Petrovic, if he is dropped, to then claim it back.
Yeah, and segueing into a slight mini preview for Bournemouth against Tottenham, you've got to find a way to stop Richarlison in his tracks. Colin Moani has a reputation, but he hasn't been able to hit the ground running. But Richarlison will be one of your key men. their key men, I should say. He's one that you're going to have to target. And just make sure that their wing backs, Porro and Spence, don't get too much joy going forward. So if you can stifle all of that, then you might have a chance. But I think, as Eugene will testify, big up to him, by the way, Spurs just can't seem to score more than one goal and they can't hold on to a lead. I think you got a chance.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. We're all hoping here, Manny, just to at least get some points on the board and give us a little bit clearer from that relegation zone. We know it's super tight in the middle of the table. Anything can happen over 2 games. So fingers crossed for the rest of January. I think you'll like this, Manny, on a closeout for the show. Rice the Goat will carry us to a total. I don't mind it. You'll fall in love. I know you will. Our number 6 is the King of Brazil. Our centre-half, he'll give you hell. Our wall at the back is Gabriel. There we go.
Yeah. Guys, listen, I'm going to say this right now to both of the Arsenal fans in the chat. I like the confidence, but, I'd like you to be a little bit courteous, okay? This is a Bournemouth fan channel, and we've got to be magnanimous and gracious towards our guests who were our hosts over the weekend and who gave us a tough game and who, in my opinion, are too good to be where they are on the table. Let's be gracious and magnanimous.
I love the bad.
Attitude determines altitude.
Unfortunately, these are things that we're going to be up against. And you're right, Manny. It's not where we should be, but these things happen, and we'll continue to take on the criticism and continue to take on the beatings until we get to where we want to be. Because we're Cherries fans through and through here on this channel, and we're back in. Exciting games ahead. I reckon we've got another 6 points to come out of January with our games against Wolves and the likes of West Ham, I think, in a couple of weeks.
Yes.
Fingers crossed. Manny, I want to welcome you, wish you all the best, and thank you for coming on the show tonight. Obviously,
pleasure, Ollie.
Thanks to Craig and Malcolm, as always. For now, we'll see you either on a Cherry AM or next week for Cherry Slaps. Goodbye for now.
Okay, bye.
TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
I should be like you, Mel.